Well,
talked about
Speaking of the art of war,
starting.
Pat,
Rochelle.
we're here to talk about a craze that is sweeping the nation. It's called inflation.
Inflation. Sorry. How I'm ready to be a grown up. Inflation.
Who's here with us?
Oh, Jesus, Joey, what's your last name?
What we see in the place to be.
Joey C in the place to be at Charlie. What is this place? Charlie, how are you doing, Charlie?
Oh my God, Charlie's here.
Hi, I'm here. I'm doing well, guys.
Thanks for having me as well.
No, thank you for being with us. We like having people on the show, so it's not just us going crazy over things we're mad about.
I don't know why I had the deer in the headlights look like I've never done this show before. I'm sorry. Like for just a moment, I was just totally not in show mode. I was like, oh God, what's going on? Who are these people? I'm not that stoned and I'm not that caffeinated.
So, Pat,
Prove it.
All right, let's go.
I had you watch a PragerU video about.
Oh yeah, and you had me watch what I called "We Have PragerU at Home," which was the Liberty
The Liberty Line?
Foundation project people.
And were they about inflation or were they about minimum wage? I feel like
they
minimum
were
wage.
about minimum wage.
And what were the takeaways from the?
I
I make him do the stuff I don't want to listen to.
Give him
so
homework.
he
great.
listens to the Fox News,
yeah,
and then I do like the reading of
It
articles.
is. Here's the deal. It is a 2-minute video. So if we wanna pause the audio because I don't want the listeners at home to be subjected to
Yeah,
this.
don't do these cool things to.
I will.
Why would
also,
you do this, Charlie? We
also,
don't
they
have
might
to
be
watch it.
they might be vaguely litigious. So I don't know. They're definitely a grifter place. I can tell you about them when we're done this part. But we should subject. I want to subject you guys to this video. I'm gonna while you guys are watching this, I'm gonna look up an even greater PragerU. If I can find one, if I look, go ahead and watch this.
Okay, so we're watching it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is.
%. Fuck.
I didn't realize this would be so up your alley. Two plus two is 5. I'm fine with pumping my own gas.
Pretty one-sided. Thank you.
Yeah, how what are the profit margins for a restaurant?
If you're hitting 5%, you're doing real good right now.
Yeah.
Speaking of right now, if you're hitting 5%, you're doing real fucking good right now. Because everybody gets a piece. I mean, that's kind of like any industry, alas, 5% is a big number right now.
So they're misrepresenting the numbers in general.
I wouldn't say they're misrepresenting it.
Oversimplifying?
Exactly. It's a bit more nuanced than just that. But
An idea of PragerU's usual fare. At least for my search algorithm, their second most relevant video. The first one was PragerU versus YouTube, and then the second one was Hitler far right or far left? Is its own like that's
The PragerU?
yeah, it's a PragerU one.
I mean, it might be specified to your
well
login too.
Well, because like
Not saying you look at
Oh, no.
stuff.
Oh,
No, yeah, but these are their videos.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, but like the deal, their brand is alt-right conservative dog whistle stuff, and like
the
my
Koch brothers are really
Popular.
large
Yeah.
Hit
investors.
the popular button.
Yeah.
See what's popular. I think. Left or liberal. Immigrants. Progressive income tax. The left.
Why left the left? Dang, they've got
Capitalism,
their
socialism.
own born like they've
Yeah.
got their own
So-
born agains.
yeah, there's a
Fuck.
whole there's. I'll look up the show. The thing I wanted to point out specifically in that is like. Sorry, I was going to do a new thing, and instead I'll focus on the old thing for a second first. The thing that I think is fuckety in that is that, like you said, there's specifically one side to that they're presenting, and like specifically one argument of like, oh, maybe there's. You were, as you were watching that, like you were shaking your head at different parts. I could see, and like
Mhm.
parts that were like, well, this doesn't seem smart to do.
Mhm.
And my whole issue is, it's like, the mission of that is to get in people's minds that what you do and like what Sherry's is the same thing, right? Where it's like you're both restaurants, you're both just you're just both businesses owned by a thing, but we both know the distinction between like a franchise owner and like owner operator, number of them, and what you do, right? And so like your margins way different than that guy's margins, right? And the idea with a lot of their brand of stuff with Prager specifically is to get people to be very divisive of each other
Mhm.
instead of willing to kind of hear not like both sides of the aisle solution, but hear both sides of the problems issues, right? Because there's like a like there's stuff that's like, oh, this is left leaning or this is right leaning, and to a certain extent, I don't care about that. If it's like, what do the employees and the people who are operating shit, what do all these people want to agree with each other, right? Not just in like the cue the communism music, but not just in that way of, but like you also know as like a person operating a business, if your employees hate you, how good a business are you gonna have after a while, right? If your turnover rate is just everybody leaving, right? Like eventually you're gonna run out of employees or business, right? Like that's just, and that is reflective of the owner or whatever. But again, it's this thing to separate people in a variety of ways and to obfuscate that it's like a small business owner is different than say a franchise owner, because they
Yeah,
are
like, and a small business owner is different than the Target Corporation
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
We get into semantics of what a small business owner is too. In our last podcast on the AO show,
yeah.
micro businesses was something that
What's a
was
micro business?
exactly less than 5 employees, less than what was it, $500,000 or something like that?
I've worked at a micro business.
Exactly.
Like,
And
I
they
was
make up-
living with my bosses.
And they
that's-
make up
how micro is that?
96% of small businesses.
Yeah, because you
So-
can't really grow past that, because I don't think small business
Mm-hmm.
law, like business law, isn't really beneficial to small businesses in a lot.
So during the whole pandy-wandy when they were giving out PPP
So those
loans and all that
PPP
stuff.
loans, yes.
So a small business was like you made less than $10 million a year. And and you had
That's not
less,
a small
less than
business.
500 by their definition.
But-
it is, and by overall definition, it is. And then
But common
sharing-
sense?
So how common is common sense?
I know.
You know, Sherry Ann
But
came
also,
in with
I
the
don't have an
facts about it.
economics degree, and it's common sense to me.
That's the thing, you know. It's like, hey, here I am,
I
a
don't touch this
layperson.
stuff.
Exactly, right? A layperson can see that, hey, that's fucking not right.
Yeah.
And they are the majority. These micro businesses make up, over 90% of what would be considered small businesses.
But yeah,
employ
and you
X amount of
agreed
more
though
people.
at the point where you were saying that it would likely mean that you would have to lay off staff. So you feel, would you?
In certain instances, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
have you had to do that in the past when minimum wage has gone up?
Nah, fuck that shit.
Okay.
Fuck them. When I opened the restaurant 8 years ago, minimum wage was $10 an hour. And in the business plan and financials I laid out, that's what I started everybody out. I told them that, plus they get tips. They're all tipped employees.
Mm.
And it shook out to about, between $15 and $18 an hour they would take home. Now minimum wage is 1673, 16, it's going up again. You know, it's consecutive.
Yeah, you guys have
laws.
like the graduate
Yeah.
one going on.
So-
We do too. Like we just had ours go up.
I haven't paid attention because I haven't been that close to minimum wage in a while, and it's really sort of depressing that
Yeah.
it still doesn't feel any less stressful.
It looks like
Well, that's the thing. We talked about this before too. As they increased minimum wage,
everything got more expensive.
everybody else is like, cool. They got more money to spend. We'll just raise prices on everything.
And that's part of my that's part of what like PragerU does.
1628. I thought I'm paying everybody 1675 or something like that. 1574. What the fuck is this?
It will go up from.
That's
15.
why it's because it's the AIO overview. You can't rely on that
Scroll
shit.
up from that because underneath it is the thing we want.
1670 something, I think.
Because that's from the
Is what it is right now.
Yeah.
So
That's from
Square.
Square. My bad.
when I worked at a preschool at my university, minimum wage, that was when the last time federal minimum wage went up.
Oh, it might be a Vancouver, Clark County thing too.
And
Yeah.
Montana is usually at minimum wage. So that was the first time it gone up. And my boss tried to say, we're giving you a raise. I was like, no, the government mandated you to give us a raise. Like, and it's not to say that, like, I'm not grateful that I made more money, but do not make this sound like you chose to do this. It just seemed really goofy in a weird way to be like, you got a raise.
But it's also like that video obfuscates part of the problem too. That when people are like, well, businesses then raise the prices of goods and services in response to the minimum wage increase. I think that's still AI, but I think like it's approximately right. If we're just
16,
if we're just gonna compare and contrast AIs enough time,
It's going to go up to 17 and then it's going to keep going up from there because it's not going to go back.
Yeah.
But
Could
whatever.
you,
It's fine. Yeah. Whatever it is. Yeah.
Well, and what's interesting is that minimum wage has been around since the 19th century. It was started mainly so that like kids weren't doing fucking jobs or
Labor laws and shit like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the minimum wage came out of trying to protect people. And I mean, a lot of the labor strikes, like the Newsies, that musical is based on one of the early labor strikes in regards to minimum wage.
Before I forget, The Audit is a very fun podcast. Oh, you're fine. About PragerU, where they go through and listen to episodes and debunk them. Sometimes with experts on that stuff, sometimes with comedians. But it's a writer and a producer that do it. It's on YouTube. They even went to like Prager University itself because like they've tried to influence like educational programs in schools and stuff.
They've tried to say you can use PragerU in classrooms and like tried to market it as a supplemental education.
And then
Information comes in different forms. I don't disagree with that.
No, I don't think there's a problem with that. But when you realize it's entirely funded by people like the Koch brothers, who have a very vested interest on people not having financial stability,
and that
you don't make the kind of money billionaires make by caring about what we make.
And they count on people saying information comes in different forms and then not following up on what their information is saying.
So the audit is about
just
seeing
going
if there's
through
actual facts to back up what they're saying. So it's
Like an audit.
Yeah.
yes,
Right on.
yes, exactly.
They also did it to a master class before this, which is the more liberal, the like you can hire Hillary Clinton to give you a class on how to give speeches.
Steve Martin did one on comedy.
Yeah.
My brother bought
good.
it for me, but I didn't.
Ninja did a
Bad
master
there.
class on how to be a Twitch streamer.
I heard it was real bad.
Real awful.
Anyway, sorry, I just wanted
So-
to, I had mentioned that earlier. I wanted to
One
follow
thing
up
that's
on
also important to note is that of first world industrialized nations, the United States has the lowest minimum wage. And that's specifically attributed to the fact that we have such a large tipping culture. So that it is expected that tipping is to compensate for wage. I'm not going to get into the morality with that, but that is a pin to why minimum wage.
Well, no,
in the
I
United
think-
States.
I think that's an important thing because, like, to me, some of the issue is you look past the fucking thing that's going on and you look at why it's happening or what it says or our solution. And we're all acknowledging that, like, oh shit, people are not getting paid enough. Fuck it, here you go. Have just a little bit that's extra in my pocket to save for the fact that, like, no, we know nobody has enough money. Like, we know that there is not enough between all of us, but have what's in my hand because fuck it, I don't even care if the service was good. We're just obligated to help each other.
And
I
I
think
tip out of remembering what it was like to work in food service and how overwhelming it was and how grateful I am.
That's why everybody should have a front-facing food service
I think there
job.
needs to be everyone I think should do some sort of service industry job at some
Agreed.
point in time. And I mean, I think that also means there needs to be a more communistic aspect to how we provide service.
like you can't do it. Like part of the reason the Koch brothers.
Play it.
Does say it.
Play it.
Hit the red button, Charlie.
Here's the thing though.
Mhm.
Part of the fuckity part with that is like the Koch brother. I think it's the Koch brothers. There's a book I've been listening to called Dark Money about how these people, these billionaires, have influenced politics. It's fucking forever. I've been listening to it in chunks, so it's all kind of wibbly wobbly in my brain. It's one I've been listening to for fun because I hate myself in a variety of ways. But the thing with a lot of these guys, like the Koch brothers and the I can't remember the other dude.
Warren Buffett.
Might be, not Warren Buffett, but the one that's like
The Hungarian guy.
there's another
Soros?
dude.
George Soros?
I don't think it's him. There's another American billionaire dude. Anyway,
Elon Musk. Donald Trump.
I mean, actually,
Not Donald Trump.
Why not?
I don't think he has $1 billion.
but actually to an extent, these
Yeah,
guys,
not legally. And most of it's probably like, yeah, I have this money. Look.
I have gold toilets.
to an extent, a lot of those guys are Musk and Trump are a lesser example of this, where it's like they had jobs that they had to do as kids, right? Of some fashion, where it's like Musk had to do like some sort of shit for his dad. I can't remember what it was, but it was like there was some reason.
Managing the emerald mines.
Or no, he robbed from his dad, and his dad was like, "That's industrious, that's smart, right?" Like he did the wrong thing, and it was rewarded. And like Trump was the same way, where like his dad would make the kids like earn time for his attention or some shit, but like would give the kids jobs to do when it's like this isn't a real job. The pressure isn't there in a variety of ways, obviously. But they take kind of the wrong lesson from it of like, I had all this pressure and I did this thing and now I'm still a millionaire. You can do it too, without being like, well, I started off a millionaire before I was managing the hotel, or in like the Koch brothers case, like baling hay. And so they think they're hardworking people, but it's like, no, you were just abused by your dad. Like who like could have given you
Thomas.
yeah, who could have given you any number of jobs besides like the shittiest job to like. And I realized like there's some amount of like, oh, it hardens the kid up or toughens him up, and like whatever that philosophy is its own deal. But like a lot of these guys take the wrong message from doing these jobs. It was kind of the point I was making there.
Oh, so you think them working that service industry job might not get the lesson that I
yeah, like
learned?
they would just be like, oh, I have to be shittier to the people I take money from.
I bet you there
because-
are people that are like that.
Yeah, like, and
That's a good
so
point.
I don't know.
There's restaurant models based around that.
Oh yeah, no, my partner loves to talk about how he went to that restaurant in Vegas where they like are, and then if you
Dick's
don't
Last
finish,
Resort. What is it
yeah,
called?
and if you don't finish your meal, they spank you. But he did finish his meal, but he's like, but can I still get a spanking? I'm like, you little pervert.
There's
Well,
plenty of models based around
They
that.
did that at the Heart Attack Grill.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That might have been it.
Mhm.
I don't know. I haven't been to Vegas. I've only been to Reno, and I was so.
Congratulations.
But my initial point was that like the fact that we have such a tip dependent economy isn't a like acknowledgement of like a meritocracy where it's like, oh, I want to show you something for thank you for the good service, have a little bit extra. It's us just as sort of a society or culture or whatever acknowledging like, oh shit, you're not paid enough, right? Like,
Well, and I mean,
and I need to make up the difference.
I don't know how many
I
people
kinda-
fucking think about it that way.
I kind
don't-
of think of it in regards to when you were talking about the margins for running a restaurant, right?
Okay.
Where like you have to run a really fucking tight ship to make sure that things run smooth, and so tipping culture is acknowledging that in the restaurant industry in general, and especially small restaurants, or at least not like large chain restaurants.
Like tipping culture in the like between who works in the kitchen is I think different than like consumer. Like, well, because like my experience is like you share tips however you share and rotate them based on like fucking
Depends.
yeah.
Yeah,
It depends on the location
structure
and
of the
shit.
place.
Depends
But
on the state too.
Oh yeah, some
yeah,
states
there's-
you have to pull tips,
okay,
or some states you can't.
Some states, servers in certain positions get paid below minimum wage.
Yes, I know. I knew that.
And,
Minimum wage, yeah.
and rely solely on gratuities for their income.
Yeah, and that's
and that's what I'm saying. It's like
unsettling.
we
Is it?
I think going below minimum wage is a problem. Just like I think that it's fucked up that disabled people get paid less than minimum wage.
Have you talked to anybody who has made less than minimum wage and relied solely on gratuity?
Yes. My friend Steven did in Idaho, Cracker Barrel.
Okay.
And it was run very poorly to the point that clock out at certain.
But again,
and then
No,
clock back
you
in.
say no. That's a choice to stay there.
It's a really small community. It's really hard to find other work, unfortunately.
There you go. Okay.
So, and what I guess what I would say is that I like the idea that at least you're getting minimum wage and then the tips are added on. I don't like the idea of assuming that you're going to be able to comp that because there are people who are really not generous.
but that goes back to the thing of like, that's Cracker Barrel. That's not fucking whoever Joey in Montana is, whoever the Montana.
Maybe, well, no, Montana's not like this. This is
Fair.
Idaho.
Oh, Idaho. Sorry, but the other part is like, how much has Cracker
But typically,
Barrels?
typically the states that have that law that you pay less for tipped work are ones that also have way worse social services as well and welfare for their.
And how much of that is to pit people? In my opinion, it like intentionally or otherwise, like whether that is the goal or not, it gets people pitted against each other, right? Where
Specifically in a restaurant, front of the house versus back of the house.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Which is coming from East Coast, historically, that's a thing.
no, I've
Out here, not so much. It's like, oh, the fucking dishwasher gets broken off,
no, I've
the
experienced
cooks get
it.
broken off, and you make $15 an hour? Interesting.
Like I've experienced it where it's like here's the thing though. Do you not want a good dish? Like you just said, who's the most important part of the house earlier is dishwasher to a certain
Agreed.
extent, right?
Yeah.
So I
it's
think
like-
tipping them out makes sense.
Like because it's like, hey, you
Doesn't
also
happen East Coast.
yeah, and that's to me
Unheard
it's
of.
like
Not unheard of. Most houses, you don't get that because that dishwasher is back of house, so they get XYZ, minimum wage, whatever.
and that's
but
designed
they
front
get
of
the
house
full
gets-
minimum wage. They don't get the lowered minimum wage.
oh, that is
No, because they're back of the house. Front of the house, because they are servers and they're tip based, their income is tip based. They get the 213 or 325, what it is. They get a check that says
Yeah.
0, and their money is their paycheck is all gratuities. It's gratuity based.
So I guess
Charlie, is there
that
a
makes
gun?
sense then there, but it makes a little more sense to have the back of house being tipped out here since it's even both ways.
Is there a gun in the
Maybe.
drawer? Because
Yeah.
I've never heard anything that makes me want to blow my brains out more.
What?
Because that is
Why?
just because it's like
$213 an hour.
well, no, just the part where it's like, all right, we're gonna pit literally front and back of house against each other by being like, hey, like instead of just paying y'all the same and like, I'm flabbergasted that it's like to me, the intention when you see the result does not matter as much. And the result is that it does hit front and back of house against
can.
each other. Yeah. And so like
Historically, it has in a lot of kitchens. It is front of house versus back of the house.
and like
When a server comes in at the end of their shift and is counting their fucking tips right in the window when you're putting up fucking French fries. Oh, Charlie with an
Oh my
exasperated sound.
Oh.
So you experienced this.
so many
Do
times.
you guys solve it with bare knuckle brawls?
I've seen it
No.
come to blows.
Well, yeah.
and like
I've seen it come to tears
I
because
wouldn't
somebody
lose
gets
that.
a zero paycheck
Yep.
and $200 bill, tip fucking nothing. I've seen it come to blows. People are like, oh, fucking East Coast, you're such a pain in the ass. I need that fucking $40 you would have put on top of that to pay my fucking rent. So I'm going to chase you down the street and call you a motherfucker. Or I've seen it come in the back and fucking crying. And
like-
as a manager, as somebody who oversees people, feeling like, I am the protector and the provider, I'm going out in the dining room. Get the fuck out of here. Take all your shit.
You're never welcome.
I don't
here
ever want to see you
again.
fucking again.
and like
Yeah.
You know?
that's you.
I've had people come back and apologize. I've had people like, hey, we didn't fucking realize that. It's ignorance.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and unfortunately, there are going to be other business owners who are like, "That's the breaks."
True.
and like
And that's one of the things that sucks about having things like this like unofficial way of paying an economy is that you're relying on everybody in the system being a good actor, and there's no real force other than you going out of your way to be like, "Fuck you."
I've also been in cities where, this is the standard and servers or front of house employees get, no paycheck, but rely solely on gratuity, and people make 6 figures. And they're happy
And I
as
mean,
fucking pig and clap, pig and shit. This is like, fucking, this is great. And a lot of that is cash money. Have a nice day.
Yeah. My parents have always told me to tip in cash because it doesn't they might not be taxed, and I'm like, yeah, I love to do that.
And like it
I know it's not always the case. The macaroni and cheese restaurant I work at, the manager was stealing our tips, and they got let go from KFC for doing the same thing.
But again, these are all like my double point is it's like these are like chain places where they do that so that like some dude fucking in some corporation someplace else is making money to rent them out the name of their brand.
Yep.
Instead of somebody like you who is putting in the investment and the hard work with your employees and being like, oh, hey, that was a fuckity thing to do to my people, right? Like you're not going to get that from Cracker Barrel. And part of the thing...
Yeah, no, you're definitely not going to get that from Cracker Barrel based on my friend's experience at 3 different Cracker Barrels.
But like, you're also not going to get that at Sherry's. You're not going to get that at McDonald's. You're not going to get that at a whole bunch of places because...
You're not going to get that at Carl's Jr., but maybe a Hardee's.
But they count
I didn't know if they were the same thing until I like had visited out this way, and I was like, what?
Combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bell.
Owned by Pepsi.
But
Oh, Pepsi.
places like PragerU, a lot of these kind of places obfuscate the fact that like those mega corporations, like those big businesses, right, count on all of their like loss and shrinkage and all that shit to be a part of their profit. And instead of being like, oh, we need to make the same sacrifices you would make to make sure your employees get something, you're not getting a new car if your employees aren't getting paid, right? Like,
Well, and it feels like a lot of labor law hides behind small business while not necessarily benefiting it.
And like,
And that's
And
how
would
small
you-
business is defined. You know, if you're making 10 million, are you a small business? If
Yeah,
you have
like, are you
500
a small
employees, are
business?
you a small business?
But like, especially when you hear people talking about being pro-business, a lot of the time when it really shakes out, it's pro for big business and very rarely for small business or even micro business.
And that's what
we've been referring.
That's what it
to.
shook down to in our last podcast. So it's like, you know, do small business owners, micro business owners contribute to the welfare of the city monetarily? Very, very small. You know, we pay fees and fines and stuff like that.
But
and
the
little stuff.
community part is the important
Okay.
part. A lot of the, I would say.
Do they care about that? But
I
but
mean-
the people own the bricks. $28 million to build XYZ,
Yeah.
and it's going to bring in $40 million to the city. We don't care to fucking, you know, your health fucking health inspection is $2,000 compared to the $28 million that's going to make us $40 million. Plus, we're going to tax the shit out of them and all kinds of stuff. So it's the peanuts. But what to Sherry Ann's point when she said, you know, these micro businesses have cue to music should have more fucking pull because we are the majority, but the higher ups can regulate it or dysregulate it because the money that comes
Well,
in.
and they can take the hit,
And
but
then-
you can't.
and some
And
guy-
that's what I think that's more of what I mean.
And it's a
is
pay-to-play system.
Big businesses
Exactly.
are hiding behind you because they know that they can take the fucking hit and you guys will fall.
And
Like
like-
I've seen so many small businesses in my communities get just fucked over just because like bad year, but then something else big moves in and it doesn't enrich the community, it doesn't make things better, and it makes the place less like people like it less.
and like a lot
When
of
it
these
starts
some people, yeah.
yeah.
Chipotle, we were talking about them too. You know, that's the first big thing that's downtown besides Starbucks, you know, restaurant wise, and New Seasons being out of town. I don't motherfuck New Seasons too much. I shop there. I think it's okay. You know, having these other things in the community, but certain leases coming up, and you've been here 10 years. Your rent was X amount, but now we can get, you know,
Yeah.
3,000% more from Chipotle or some big company.
Yeah.
Are people going to go eat there? Absolutely.
Well, but the thing
And
is how much of that money from that Chipotle, other than that rent, is going back into the economy too?
and how much of that is
Like,
going,
sure, it's the wages,
Mm-hmm.
but beyond that, they're not really doing much more for the community. Places like that are much more for resource extraction than
and like
Sometimes the community wants that stuff too.
disgusting.
well, like
That's one way to put it. In an uneducated community, which is a big part of from my perspective, any restaurant owner is educating the public.
Yeah.
and that's kind of what that is kind of the distinction between you and Sherry's or these places, and like it's the fact that like
Sherry's is a chain diner, right?
yeah
Okay.
Oh
and
yeah,
it's like
SHARIS.
Yeah.
but my
Ours
point
is
is
close-
that
Yeah,
like
close to
there's a
pie.
lot
Like a pie,
of
yeah.
a lot of people will equate like a franchise owner with a restaurant owner because like both people own a restaurant, air quotes, right? And it's like the guy who like has a bunch of businesses in a bunch of places, and one of his franchises can do way less because in the end the other three are in a better neighborhood, but on paper like that loss actually looks good for his tax write-off, is different than somebody who's like, hey, you're not going to tip my employee who I saw bend over backwards for a ticket that was like incredibly huge. Fuck you, right? Like,
Yeah.
and
It's kind
the
of like how we talk
uneducated,
about community police. Don't need to get into cops,
but
same principle.
the uneducated customer isn't going to see the distinction between you two through an organization like PragerU. They are just going to get people to focus on the fact that like people might be forced to fire employees or make sacrifices that they might not be able to make in order to keep employees. Like you're not going to give up your home for your employees, right? But like you might you might be like, hey, I'm not going to get, like I said, like a second car or a third car or whatever, right? Like you're not going to go do crazy stuff unless your own accounts are settled, and that's different than a person who's going to own that franchise for tax write-off and all that
The
bullshit.
person who has a below ground pool.
Yes, and my
Below ground?
my point is,
Those are the
you have
expensive
more in common. We have more in common. Your workers, blah blah blah. Cue the music, than the dude with the franchise.
Perhaps.
And like he's not the part of fucking comments there is that dude isn't really contributing labor wise. He's just extracting labor from everyone.
Some people have franchises and working their owner operators go in there every day.
That's again still different than like the overall person owning a fucking
Micro business.
Walmart
Mhm.
or whatever.
Yeah.
What do you
Like,
think of ghost kitchens?
They're spooky.
No, you don't know about ghost kitchen.
What's a ghost kitchen?
So ghost,
I'm interested to.
Do you got to pay ghosts the same minimum wage?
no, it's depressing. It's not. I wish it was.
They make
something
less
fun.
than minimum wage? Fuck.
No,
Wait,
so
is this the
ghost
paranormal
kitchens.
process?
You know, like when you're looking on a delivery app.
No.
Okay, well, people look on,
Fuck them in
DoorDash,
general.
whatever. I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Please
Private,
continue.
private taxi for
I know.
your burrito?
You know, you're educated. Do you use them?
Listen, we're all working on our consumption capitalism, and I have skills working
Congratulations.
inner work. But when you're looking at those, there are times that you will stumble across a restaurant you've never fucking heard of, you've never seen. And what it is it's like a commissary kitchen in Southeast Portland with 7 different concepts being made by the same 7 people and getting picked up from a delivery window.
Example would be like Mr. Beast Burger. He did that starting during the pandemic where
Yeah, so it's like they just
sold the
basically rent
concept.
commercial kitchen space and they make whatever, maybe good food or likely shitty food, and then put it on
Interesting.
delivery services, make it super accessible, make a bunch of money. The one
Sounds
that I
fucking
work,
great.
you like that idea?
well, because like
Somebody had a fucking genius idea to cram 7 fucking businesses in one spot, all manned by the same staff, make it accessible to everybody. So the people want it. There's demand for it. They saw the hole. They
I mean,
filled it. They made it.
Hold on. There's a difference between
I'm
people wanted it and people found out about it and wanted it. Like
What's the fucking difference?
they were sold it.
the reason I think I bring it up though is that the person who owned it was out of San Francisco.
Okay.
So most of the profit was going back to San Francisco.
Okay.
It wasn't staying in our community.
Okay.
And it also, like, disgusting kitchen, horribly managed, and run by
it's not it's that thing where it's like it's not
someone who had to change their name because of domestic violence charges.
So
Like,
we're getting
it's
into
not-
the
it's-
minutia of it, but
Yeah, I'm getting the minutia of it.
the concept
But like
from
you,
a-
so you like the concept of that.
from the
And I
entrepreneur
mean-
standpoint of it, from a business owner standpoint, fucking immaculately genius.
but if it's your business, that's
Yeah,
different. than
would you
if
want to
it's-
run that business? And would you would you take pride in that kind
And,
of
like, the
business
whole
or enjoy
point-
running that kind of business?
and,
I
like,
mean,
the
I don't
whole-
know. I don't know all the details of it. Alas, I have that back room there that I built as a sandwich shop, which never came to
Fruition.
true fruition, and it is used as a commissary space for other people to do their work.
Commissary spaces are cool. I do really like the idea of commissary spaces.
Okay.
See?
Sorry.
He makes a good point.
It was more that they were
It's like a lot of them popped up during the pandemic, and I think they affected a lot of people's ability to maintain brick and mortars. And like
There was a lot of other shit going on during that.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of stuff going on, but it was
like
taking
fucking income.
Yeah, no,
not
but
being able people to sit in your restaurant.
Well,
yes, absolutely. But so like they took advantage of that, and I think it did affect like brick and mortars and local businesses. And I think like
the other
So they took advantage of a situation.
and
no, they did take advantage of a situation.
Okay. Same could be said for any restaurant that opens in any place.
That's true.
You don't have pizza? I'm going to take advantage of that and put a pizza joint, and now there's a wildly successful pizza restaurant. That person took advantage of that situation.
But the thing that makes this shitty is it's this specific format is like venture capitalist shit, where it's like a bunch of people with no investment in an actual restaurant or business.
And no interest in the welfare of their staff.
They just hear,
which I
hey,
would say was the thing that was it.
Gave people jobs.
It gave people
They could have
jobs.
fucking health care.
The other part
I didn't
of
have
it
health
is
care when
it's-
I worked there. I couldn't
it's-
afford it.
It's also based on like the same model of what Uber, their intention was to do to restaurants what Uber did to taxis, right? Was to say, hey, it's all the same, right? It's all pizza and burger and taco and lasagna and fucking
Was lasagna
vegan.
in there?
I don't know what all they had in
Bold
there,
move.
but
We
they
had
were-
a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
I could-
It was wild.
it was, and so like it's a commoditizing joy again, where it's like you're making a restaurant because you like food, you like interacting with people. I'm presuming a lot here, but like
Sure.
based on what
Hates food.
based on our interactions
Famously
with
only eats that Soylent Green stuff.
yes, based on our interactions with pizza alone, I know how much you appreciate food and respect food, and like you're not doing that in Mr. Beast's super kitchen of Asian fusion burger, burrito, fucking grilled chicken or fried chicken. Yeah, that's the
No,
popular.
we had fried chicken, we had mac and cheese, we had loaded French fries.
Did you have the fish
We
sandwich? the
had
famous fish
soul
sandwich?
fusion, like
But- but-
Korean, Mexican fusion. We had all of that shit.
You're not. The goal of the venture capitalist people isn't, oh, I care about this food. I want the person in this environment.
It's solely about profit, and I think that's the part that bums me out. Is that it's not about.
Are you upset that business people are doing business to make money?
I think if your only
I
reason
am, but
if your only
to-
reason to do business is to make money and it isn't actively making the community better, I have a problem with it.
Charlie, cue the music, because I am. But
Yeah,
only because,
Pat's
like,
farther left than I am.
but like,
But
because
like, I guess it felt dehumanized. It felt like weird and dehumanizing, and like it felt like buying from a vending machine instead of from a restaurant.
and like
Same, yeah.
the whole point
Yeah,
is
I
to
would see
put restaurants out of business by saying, hey, consumer, you can go to this. And again, an educated consumer is going to be like, yeah, but I want to go to like a fucking restaurant where like a person who gives a fuck about the food they're making isn't just fucking burrito. All right, cool. I'm making
Yeah.
a burrito. Like fried chicken, cool. Fried chicken, like it's and like whatever percentage of that is even just fucking microwave food or fucking cash food for cash for food.
Cash and
Cash and care. However much of that is just
U.S.
cash
Chef Store.
yeah, like that.
And not the raw ingredients.
Yeah, so my point
it's
is
all like
their
Cisco
intention is
stuff,
to
right?
is to put
Oh yeah, no. What
restaurateurs out of
mine was
business
just
with
glorified
this.
fast food.
That was their goal. Like, oh, the pandemic's going on. We'll take advantage of these people losing their
So you're
kitchens.
saying that's their goal. These
Yeah.
venture capitalist people who clearly they're in business to make money. You're saying they intentionally went in there to put people out of business.
People like you, because then they just own that business. It's that thing of like, if
That
I
was their
eliminate,
intention,
like,
not to make money.
I don't know if it
I
was
don't-
necessary.
yeah.
Like,
I
let's
don't know.
let's
Their
not
name
fully.
is- I don't
venture
know.
capitalist.
I don't know how much of their conversation was our intention.
Let's be clear.
fucking
I got
thing,
us way
but-
off topic talking
yes.
about ghost kitchens, but I,
I just
usually
wanted-
don't talk to restaurant folks. But
Yeah.
a lot of people who I work with in the food service industry think they're awful. Like people who are at the ground level don't like them, and I didn't like working at one.
And like my point was to clarify that like I don't like for the average person not thinking about it in a
Not thinking about it.
and like how much time does the average person have to think about it is a conversation and question all of its own, but that like there is a difference between a person who manages a business because they care about the craft of it or whatever it is they're doing, and like care about their community, care about their customers and their employees in a way that is like not that different than how I care about my community and listeners, blah, blah, blah. And like,
I don't care about our
that is
listeners.
different than,
Not one of them.
you know, the guy who owns a bunch of whatever, right? A person who's in there just to make money, right? And not that like I think making money is a bad thing. My personal opinion is money is a unit of measurement, and it's really weird that we base things off of it, but that's neither here nor there. The thing I was trying to like focus on was that all of these conversations do divide people that have a lot more in common, and that division keeps us from seeing like the people that do take advantage of this. Because if you have a number of these franchises, you can play the shell game of, well, I lost profits with this one, so my taxes will be good for that. But I will keep the profits from these guys and write my normal taxes that way. And then I make even more money by grifting the system. And like,
Grifting the system?
I mean, if
Using the system.
six of one, half dozen of the other.
The system is set up to have these things in place where I can use these tools to monetize, make as much money as I can.
I'm not hearing a difference. Like if the system is set up that way.
Exactly. I'm not either.
If the system is set up to be a grift, that's what it is. Correct. But
Okay.
like,
Root cause.
yeah, no, that's like, and that's kind of what my intention with this is, for people to see a little bit more of that.
Okay.
Because
So your
the root
intention is
cause-
for people to educate people, right, about this scenario.
and like,
I would agree that this PragerU video,
yeah,
if it ignites a conversation, much like this one, maybe not as intelligent because you guys are real
Well,
smart, but anything that would fucking start a conversation, any kind of spark, whether it be left, right, middle, wherever the fuck it leans. Well, we talked about these uninformed consumers, people not thinking about it
yeah.
in any way, shape, or form other than I want a fucking Mr. Beast chicken sandwich and DoorDash is going to bring it to me. Take a beat and fucking think about it. If the PragerU video does it, if this fucking podcast does it, that's the important.
Well, and I think
And that's my job
that's
as,
part
a,
of
as a small business owner, is to educate my customers. You can go get pizza from XYZ and blah, 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 blah. Here's a list of farms right on my fucking wall that I buy from. I know these people. I know their families. I know their dogs' names. I see them coming here crying because they're going to have a hard time making their fucking bills because farming is way fucking harder than anything we do.
Yeah, and it's also been subsidized for big farmers in a way that is
And we can get into
because they
microfarms about that,
because
too.
they hide behind small farmers.
It's the same.
It's the same. And so
Oh, we're pulling similarities now.
yes,
Look at
no,
this.
we're connected because a lot of
Mhm.
this comes down to, with if we're going to talk about the restaurant industry in general, is food subsidy. Food subsidies are a big part of the problem that we're dealing with, because you can't have farm to table shit if the people who own like all the seeds can have your whole farm destroyed or like taken over because they catch some of your grain on their property. And it's like, and then when we talk about restaurants, you take hits that larger restaurants like fucking Chipotle, like if Chipotle has to close their location here, that's not going to tank Chipotle. But like if you have to close your location here, that's going to be a hard reset in what you do with your life and how you move forward.
And if
Perhaps.
Chipotle closes, though, either way, all those people are out of a job, like you or Chipotle.
There is still impact.
And like,
Yeah, exactly.
And my kind of my overall point is that point that like Chipotle, that still doesn't matter to you. There's the presumption is that to you there's the pressure of like, oh, I have these people who rely on me to like make sure my kitchen is running the way I need to do, like run my business, whatever. I'm fucking not either too stoned or not stoned enough. I cannot decide. My point is just like you're not like Chipotle's loss of a place means nothing to them, ruins lives, right? Potentially, depending upon like
It's one perspective.
if depending upon the job market, depending upon like what you're counting on, depending upon any number of things. But the loss of impact and income gonna mean something mainly just to the workers, not to Chipotle writ large, because they have a bunch of other
Yeah,
Chipotles,
the negative impacts are going to be absorbed by the community much more than
and they can
Chipotle.
also
That's one perspective.
and
We
also-
talked about this too. So Chipotle moved in there, and I motherfucked it a little bit because there was that space, corner space. They could have picked any number of small businesses, food-based businesses from the community right now that have done pop-ups here, and gave them a screaming deal and put them in there. But they didn't. They pitched it to me like 3 years ago when they built our building. They're like, oh, we're going to have an anchor tenant Chipotle. I'm like, yeah, go fuck yourself. I am totally okay with Chipotle being there right now because when they close, it'll be unfortunate for the people that work there. And most likely they'll be able to put, I worked at Chipotle, and like, oh, you worked at Chipotle? They can find another restaurant industry job. When that place closes, that is a fully outfitted, well-designed kitchen that some small businesses are going to get a fucking screaming deal on and kill it. And I am cool with that part of it.
I guess what I would say to that then, because that's a really good, realistic way of seeing, because it's your experience, is like, why do we have to have some large corporation come in and lay that groundwork instead of that small business having the means to be able to do that from the beginning with like legitimate small business loans and actual support,
or illegitimate, depending upon who you know.
Yeah, exactly. Let's fall off back of truck.
There's
No
plenty of
judgment.
money out there.
No judgment.
There's plenty of money out there.
There is money out there, but there is not necessarily enough, and especially when
there's
a
enough.
lot.
It's access to it though.
Yeah, access to it, exactly. And what I'm saying
Education.
is that the tax breaks and all the shit that larger corporations benefit from, and all of the labor codes that they benefit from because they're larger and they can just deal with that, means that small businesses continually have to struggle. And I would just love to, if we want the free market to be the free market, it would be really nice if bigger business didn't just like, it's like a fucking magnet pulling on extra benefits all the time. And like, and then they get to the point where they're too big to fail, and then we bail them out. Like the auto industry, the airline industry, the banking industry. They fuck up and they get trillions of dollars.
The government industry.
Yeah, exactly.
And like,
I mean, the military industrial complex.
And like, not to.
How many jets did we build that can't fly?
Oh, the F-21s?
Yeah.
F-21
or whatever it is, the new jet that like
There's
some
a
of them
jet.
they can't fly in the rain. Like,
Oh, really?
they spent like a couple billion dollars
It
designing
sounds like
this
the
thing.
Cybertruck of the U.S. military.
Many moons ago, I was in close communication with somebody who worked for, I think it was Boeing, F-35 Lightning. But yeah, he worked on Forward Avionics, and I believe those were the ones that failed in the rain. I was like, yo, Jordan, what's up with the F-35? He's like, I don't know shit about it. I was like, the fuck you don't, man.
Well, he doesn't want to know anything
This
about
was
it
many moons
because
ago. This was
hey, they might have been
2000
killing people then too.
yeah, this was 2009.
That was funny. I saw a
Lockheed
meme.
Martin, so yeah.
I saw a meme where they're like, "Oh, Boeing just needs to stop eating avocado toast." I'm like, "No, the real expense is all the hitmen."
That's it too. F-35 2 now, right? You might have been talking about the F-22 Raptor, which are fucking absolute marvels of engineering and design. They're killing machines, and it's fucking terrible. And they're a gajillion dollars a fucking piece. Alas, you know.
So like, we just don't make one of those, and then everyone gets free breakfast and lunch.
That's one way to put it,
Or
yeah.
at least,
But
at least, like, I don't know, like.
No, but like every public school could now use their kitchens to make sure everybody has a free breakfast and lunch every fucking day. I guarantee it. We could size that up. That could happen. So you're right.
Okay.
There is the money.
So here's my suggestion.
There's also plenty of food.
yeah,
there's
there's
so much-
plenty of food.
there's so much food waste in this
food waste,
country.
and it's not the
different
individual
ways to go about it.
consumer.
And that's kind of what we were. That was going to be the point of inflation. But I want
Yes.
to pitch. I want to pitch something real quick before we jump to inflation. So what if we only need like one of those airplanes, right? Like one of them to work. We need two of them to work. So we just build until we get two working airplanes, right? And then all the ones that don't work, we just have spare parts for the two that do work. And that's all we'll ever need, right? So once we get two working ones and we stop and we take that money and we put it back into schools.
There we go.
Then we can still kill a bunch of people for no reason because we have the most military.
Because we
influence.
have to.
Yeah. And kids can get fed.
Right on.
Boom, baby, you got a stew going. But so the conversation around inflation and minimum wage is interesting because can you look up a graph of U.S. minimum wage adjusted for inflation?
Yeah, a nice graph with inflation going up as minimum wage goes up. And that'll be a very telltale sign of, oh, it doesn't fucking work.
Well, like, and that's kind of like, but what you can do is hide.
Googly moogly.
What you can do is hide the amount of profits you keep.
So which is the red line?
Says it right there.
So what's that big top peak?
Peak value 1346.
And what year was that?
1968.
So minimum wage going up has not affected inflation really since that time.
I say nay, nay.
Look at that graph.
I say go fuck yourself.
Okay, why?
Why what?
Because if you literally look at the numbers look at how those graphs are going. So
Mhm.
the blue one, that's just how it looks without us adjusting for inflation. That's what wages are. But right now, what we're making in minimum wage is that much lower than what was happening in 1968. How is minimum wage making things more expensive if that line is changing so drastically when adjusted for inflation?
So this is the aggregate of the federal minimum wage. Minimum wage is set by the states. That's why gas in Washington is different than gas in
Montana,
middle of
yes,
the country.
other places, yes.
Exactly.
But why are we not going to look at it on a national scale if we're going to be talking about raising the federal minimum wage?
If that's what you're talking about, raising the federal minimum wage.
Yeah, we're talking about this. This is specifically just minimum wage in general, but specifically federal minimum wage.
Okay.
For example, in the country, I mean, in the states, in the states where minimum wage is where it's at, like it doesn't get bumped up by states. Those are also the states with the lowest, the highest use of federal services for supporting themselves as families. So if we raised the minimum wage federally, those people would rely less on government subsidies to support themselves.
If the federal minimum wage, my perspective, if the federal minimum wage was raised to whatever, what is it now, $7.25?
Yeah.
You would see an incremental, perhaps more, inflation of cost of goods in general across the board. Because at each individual state where it is higher than 725, it is a clear fact that things cost more.
What?
The video.
It's
Robert
like-
Reich was the labor secretary under.
Okay.
And
It might not be labeled. 1 second.
it's probably like third or fourth. If you literally, you should be able to find it.
My perspective is cost of goods is directly proportional to minimum wage or what people are paid. You know, there's average incomes and medial incomes for areas, and things cost differently in that. You know, we pulled it up last time about Clark County, the median income and the cost of housing. And then somebody said something about Camas. So I was like, we'll pull that up. And it was different.
Sorry, this is
Here,
not
I'll
my
get it.
fault.
1 second.
That's
That's it.
finding.
Sent it to the wrong thing.
So I think that there have been times in the past, based on what the YouTube videos I watched and the research that I engaged with, there were times where they were connected, but at the end of the 60s was the last time it was entirely relevant, because after that, the corporate tax rates started going down and corporate overhead kept going up. So what's happening is that things are getting more expensive because corporations are taking more off the top, and they continue to be doing so. And so what they'd rather say, though, is that the minimum wage is what's causing that, even though each time we've raised the federal minimum wage in recent history, those numbers have not changed in conjunction with those minimum wage raises.
When has federal minimum wage been changed in recent history?
2009.
It was how much?
They went up to $7.25. I don't know what it was before that. I feel like it was maybe like 50 cents.
50 cents was the federal
Like
minimum
the
wage?
increase.
Oh,
No,
the increase. Oh,
It
okay.
was like maybe 50 cents.
I was going to say, holy shit.
No, I think it was like 50 cents.
Okay.
And the times that I have seen the most drastic increases in prices have been since like 2019, at least for me personally, where I've markedly noticed differences between things like pre-pandemic and then throughout the pandemic, the price gouging that was happening with corporations scooped out any remaining money I had, even though making the most
Okay.
in my life.
So corporate price gouging.
Yes, I do think it's corporate price gouging.
Okay.
Dang, look at them boobies. Sorry. Okay. Yes. I'm so sorry that took so long, but thanks for the boobies. Corporate concentration. That's what it is.
A couple more C's.
Yeah, we got them all.
Broad strokes. Bullshit. Absolutely not.
They're not you.
I'm not speaking from my perspective. I guess I am, but orange cheese, white cheese, all taste the same.
Oh my God, my tampons are getting so much more expensive.
Why the fuck would they? This fucking guy. How's that worked?
It's like,
No, wait. What do you? I heard you say bullshit. I was interested to hear where that
sorry.
what that was in response
What
to.
what part?
Well, that was the first time, but like, yeah. What are your critiques?
Big companies are going to continue to make money any way they can. Plain and simple.
Charlie, cue the music. I do have a solution. Charlie cued the music.
Yeah. I mean, that is one perspective. He's talking about fear mongering. You're doing the fucking same thing, buddy. You want to present it in a certain way where it is fucking
But
hyperbole and whatnot.
what about it was fear mongering?
It's specifically from one side talking about.
I mean, he could
These corporate-
definitely critique Democrats. He could critique the fact
I don't know
that
what side he was criticizing.
no, but I'm just
whatever.
saying he could critique the fact that Nancy Pelosi has an insane stock portfolio that influences the way she votes on a regular basis. So, like, trust me, I don't think any politicians are on our side. So I find it annoying that he's only talking about Republicans talking about
But we
it.
vote for them.
I know, because I also would like to still have an abortion.
Why
if
do
I
we
need
vote
it.
for them? Because they're
And you know what?
sold.
I'm still
Those are the
voting
ones
for
we're
them,
offered.
even though they've refused to codify my right to an abortion.
I'm
I'll
voting
still
Jill
fucking
Stein,
go for
fuck
them
it.
because I'm really hoping that someone doesn't force me to have a baby. I fucking want.
Actually, this all evolves into my goal as far as what I wanted to mention.
I mean, get rid of the government too. I'm over it as well. Like,
which
I'm
is-
not a fan of anybody in power. All right.
But that's switch.
Well, I mean, like that.
That was great.
It's its own complicated conversation as far as like what to replace things with. But the point of the conversation is kind of a thing I want to talk about, i.e., like you are correct. The goal of this is its own specific style of propaganda, right? Same way as PragerU is its own style of propaganda. One is definitely in the long run going to, this guy just makes these videos and puts them online and whatever. PragerU's intention is to infiltrate schools and get people to think along their line of thinking. They've said so.
It's in there about.
Yeah. No.
Click on it.
It's like the what's the thing that Project 20.
Yeah, like they're
PragerU is just that.
they
but
were
with,
they were like kind of foundational to that kind of shit getting started in a lot of ways. And my point though was the motivation for the show is that all these sources are gonna have their own
they're gonna have things
angle
they're missing.
of conversation on it. Watching the main news stories about this, if you search through on YouTube for, inflation or minimum wage on MSNBC, you will get MSNBC's pretty much, I think, milquetoast Democrat.
They're boilerplate.
Yeah, I don't know if milquetoast is the right word for Democrats these days sometimes, but that's
Girl boss.
Well, definitely don't
rats.
call Republicans weird.
But
You
So-
can't call them weird.
so you will get their take, which will be very much that like, this is just the way things are. Nobody can change it. The only way to change it is to convince the people at top not to be so greedy.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Meanwhile, when you watch it on Fox, their entire approach is like, let's talk about literally anything else until we have to talk about this. Oh, we have 2 minutes to talk about this. All right, let's talk about this. Oh, I'm talking over you. I'm sorry. We got like 2 minutes to go. Thank you for being on. Yeah, that's true what you said about soldiers or whatever. Right. And then like the CNN's approach is to just give you information without any of this either side's context. Which is just to be like, well,
So CNN is
Kinda-
central.
I would put them-
I would say they're
Centrist.
corporate centrist.
yeah, because
Because
very
like
much
we're also talking about corporate media that requires sponsorship from all sorts of industry.
and
Okay.
like their conversation about it isn't this conversation about how it impacts people on a personal level or an interpersonal level. It's not about like, hey, a lot of these places like. The people
It's like
getting
outside
hurt by a
baseball.
lot of these laws are the small business owners, not the big businesses that have the capacity to pay their employees and then choose not to. It's not that Target left because of like revenue loss. It's because they just didn't think they made. That's a whole different story. Anyway,
Oh no, I think the Targets in Portland closed because people were itching for a union. and there's a higher minimum wage in Portland proper than non-Portland.
But my point is that the philosophies behind the conversations are gonna
And also,
influence
you
the
don't need
conversation.
bodega Targets in the middle of Southeast.
That is a little bit weird, yeah.
It was weird, and they took a bowling alley.
That bowling alley was where I met my father. Uh, my point was, you are correct. They're gonna be pretty dishonest about their biases too, right? And they're not gonna be upfront. To me, there is something somebody else was talking about. I think it was Robert Evans or some shit in a different podcast about like kind of there's something to being honest about your bias. And my bias is totally Charlie's not here to cue the music because he went to pee, but like da, 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 like that is totally my bias, right? And so I do think, hey, you know, if those billionaires aren't going to be more human, there's a lot of ways we can take that money away, and some of it is
Listen,
actually
there's a lot of very poorly made submarines that could still go to the bottom of the ocean. I would love to invite any and all billionaires to take up that mantle, because that made my fucking day.
but also
That made my fucking year.
But also, I will even say this as like fucking red and black flag anarchist as I want to be. You know, if there is a legal federal route and a system in place that just says, "Hey, how about we get that money that like billionaires aren't spending, that they're just sitting on like dragons on a horde, and like redistribute it to people so that they can have the goods and services they make." I'm totally fine with that system. If it doesn't like, there doesn't necessarily. I'm for radical changes, but they don't need to be through like revolution and bricks through windows. They can be through policy, but people have to understand what's going on, right? And like,
Good luck with that.
and well, that's kind of the
That's
goal
what
of
we're
our show.
trying to do.
That's why I watched fucking all these guys to have this conversation, because I think it is not as simple as they're raising prices. Because you're right, there is this personal incentive to do that because there's this incentive to win. Right, at capitalism or whatever. There's this idea. There's this idea that like eventually I'll have, not that I'll have enough money, but eventually I'll win at money. And like, what if we, no, sorry,
They have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to provide a profit at any cost.
I want to win at big old.
It's their job.
and
Which,
so
like,
that's a complicated thing to me, because you're right, it is your job. If I tell you it's your duty to do this thing, then you're gonna do
Poop
that.
jokes. Everybody get
Also,
on it,
duty.
yeah.
You can't say duty and not think about it.
So it's gonna mess with people in a fashion too. You're gonna lose sight of the human costs of these decisions, right? If you're
It's far gone, my man.
I know, and I think that's a fucked up thing to do to a person. Like, I think it's fucked up to make a person not see people as people because like your job depends on it. That's fucking weird that we do that to people, right? And
Yeah.
like,
I got put in a training at work because we needed to have more boundaries with our clients. And they told us that they described client behavior as acting the fool. And these are people going through all varying levels of mental health crises or substance use crises. And I was like, you know, you guys can keep that in your fucking meetings when you're talking with each other, but the reception desk doesn't need to know how that you feel that way about people being upset about their mental. And so instead of like holding the providers accountable at my job about being responsive to out and clients have scheduled appointments, fuck off for the they told us we need to have more boundaries with them instead of boundaries.
So from your perspective, the providers, that's like
So that's like
a doctor or something?
therapist, a substance use support counselor, a peer.
Okay.
But like,
They're doing shitty jobs.
I mean, there is definitely a disconnect sometimes with care with clients who need, like, I had someone who they had been without their mental health medication for months, and their provider kept.
That's unacceptable. There wasn't anybody else to fill in. This is a doctor. So not a provider, a doctor.
I use the word provider for all of them
it's
because I have doctors. a lot of work. But so what
If I'm
I'm
going to
saying
the
is that
doctor, I want to see a fucking doctor. I don't want to see a provider.
I'd rather see a nurse practitioner than a doctor.
That's a whole my point with inflation, minimum wage, with the videos that'll be on.
But I was talking about how I brought that up because I see people whose job it is to see people as human fail to do that.
Happens all the time.
And then-
Happens in the pizza shop
No, but I mean,
on both sides of the counter.
exactly. But so what I'm saying is that sometimes in the place where it's your job to be there for people in those moments instead of being there for people in their moments, they're training their staff to be more distant.
Where's the breakdown?
The breakdown is that when people stop seeing each other as people, and when people start,
I don't know. I think it's fuckity when people don't see each other as people, right? Like it's just a fucked up thing. And so, like you're saying, if you're at the top of a corporation, you're incentivized to do that. You're incentivized to look at the bottom line, the foot, whatever, right? And so when people say, "Oh, inflation is just specifically raising prices," it is a bigger conversation than that because, well, it's fucked up that we make a person have to be, for whatever reason, psychologically or societally in a position where they're like, human lives don't matter as long as the bottom line happens, right? Like that's just, if you told me that a person was just was just chosen to do that job, I would pity that person, right? That's a fucked up way to look at things. It also doesn't help to look at it as like, well, we keep raising the minimum wage and that doesn't solve problems. It just gets people fired and blaming it on the small business owners instead of looking at the places like the chains and whatnot that let go of
and the amount of like wage theft in corporate structure.
And so like, yeah, so these are all kind of the point of the overall point of the show is to be like, you have to listen to the ghosts. You have to just accept the spirit of the ghost into you. If Abraham Lincoln is with us right now, he has to tell me the Gettysburg Address. It'd be funny if he was like, actually, I did not memorize it. It was all written. I'm sorry. Yeah. He's like, all I remembered was 40 and shit, how many years ago?
And then I just freestyled it.
Anyway, the point is, if you're not aware of the
like
bias of these sources, you're not going to see the distinction, and you're not going to have the bigger conversation of like
20.
Then he died, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh,
We were having a
Roosevelt.
side history.
William Henry Harrison. He gave us. It was a super long speech, and he didn't have a code out. That's why he got pneumonia.
Okay, yeah, that was him.
20 minutes?
I forget how long.
And
Oh,
then
it's 3
that
hours.
speech that
3
you
hours.
were talking about was only 7 minutes. Like, that's not that long. I was like, that's long. And
You
then
could
brought up
Google it, I
William
don't know.
Henry Harrison.
I'm going to
That's
take the other end. Yeah, I think it was 3 hours in the rain. Then he 86 because he called fucking pneumonia or something like that. It was a long ass speech.
Do you know
Because people
that
could have fucking watched it on YouTube later. They all came out to fucking
8,445 words.
Oh, because he wanted to prove his manliness.
That's
Dude.
the Gettysburg Address?
No, that's William Henry Harrison's.
Oh, that doesn't seem like 3 hours. I don't know how long it takes to say 8,000 words.
I feel like
Nearly 2
spoken-
hours.
Oh, look at that. Meet you in the middle.
Well, I mean, it did go 3 hours because he did some crowd work at the start.
Yeah, right?
I
He had his
feel like
glad hand
a
at the end.
page. I feel like a page of like an
Typically
essay
written.
or like double spaced is like a minute. I don't know. I haven't written a speech in a long time. Usually they just happen out.
Hmm.
That was the way to say that.
Gettysburg Address is 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, that's
272
pretty
words.
short.
Yeah.
That's pretty short. 7 minutes would have been long though, especially if you had to have that memorized.
Harrison needed a fucking editor, man. You need to fucking trim the fat off of that shit. Get to the fucking point already, Holmes.
Yeah, I think an hour long speech, and you could have made your point and not died. Like that. No offense to
Editing.
No offense to the Harrison family
Yeah.
of 18 fucking
I
whatever.
believe that Zachary Taylor has a living grandson or something.
You know that get the ball rolling, that metaphor comes
Yes.
from Harrison, right?
Yes.
He
He
had
had
a big aluminum ball that he would roll from campaign event to campaign event. It had like his platform on it, writing. They were getting the ball rolling.
I learned this from Parks and Rec, actually.
Oh, so I should have learned it from Parks and Rec, but then I learned it somewhere else, and I say it all the time at work because I feel like it's a very neutral way to be like, can we just get this going? People share a lot of inappropriate stuff with you when you work at a health clinic.
Restaurants too.
Has anyone told you about the ketamine suppositories their doctor prescribed them?
Not suppositories, but booting it straight away. I mean,
That stuff
I
is
feel like we've
wild.
done most of what we do with the
Could be
show,
healing,
which
too.
is just yell about the news.
Yeah.
Let's end on something more bridging the gap, because that is the goal of the show. What is the weirdest? I'm trying to think of the weirdest thing that's happened in a restaurant.
Oh, like the weirdest kitchen
Like,
story?
because we've all
Oh,
worked in
jeez.
one. What's the?
we told a couple, I think. Funky
Yeah,
kitchen
Charlie, you
stories.
have to do this too.
Okay.
And make it embarrassing.
I'll
for
start
me.
with mine. You guys don't actually have to pay attention. That's fine. I'm used to it. When I worked,
Oh my God.
when I worked at the strip club, I would work Sundays, which are very slow. Right, it's the middle of summer. There's myself. There's a bartender, a DJ / security guard, and one dancer. And there's also, two dancers. And there's also one old man just giving away his kid's college fund, just $1 bill at a time, or his grandkids, I guess, right? And there's also a little old lady who looks the most terrified I've ever seen a little old lady look, clutching her purse in this empty strip club. Like, so I cannot clarify how dead a strip club at like 4:20 on a Sunday in the middle of summer is, and this woman is terrified for her life, and she's clutching her thing, and she's like, I don't know what to do, and I like ushered her outside so she could be more comfortable. I was like, do you need a water? Just give me a water bottle, and like gave it to her, and took her out and was like, can I help you? Like, are you lost? And she's like, well, I don't remember his name, but Seymour, but he wanted to go for a walk after dinner. And he wanted to go. He was like, let's go down this street. And then he was like, there's a gentleman's club. And I was like, oh, it'll be filled with gentlemen. That'll be nice. And there's no gentlemen's in there. There's only criminals. I was like, ma'am, I'm gonna, where do you live? And she gave me her address.
Yeah,
and
call her a taxi.
And I ordered her an Uber and sent her home. And like, it turned out, like, as I talked to her a little bit more, might not have been the first time he'd done that. Like, she was like,
Pulled a sneaky.
yeah.
Oh
I
my
heard
God.
he was scandalous, but I thought it meant something different.
Beautiful.
That sounds precious.
That's a good one, yeah.
Like,
That's a good
Like
example
the
of you
most
being
precious
human.
thing that could have happened in
service.
that scenario.
That was definitely that was one of the weirdest ones, just because it was this little old lady who just looked like so convinced that this. Like, I cannot convince you of how empty this strip club was. Like, there wasn't, like, the block around us was also empty. It was that dead of a day. Like, the corner store wasn't doing business. It was that slow. And like, it was just this little terrified woman of like fucking Candy and fucking Ruby. And like, you know what I mean? Like, Candy, Ruby, me, and Brennan, who's not gonna get up because like, then he'll have to stop vaping.
Did he have the vape that looked like this big?
Yes, actually,
Those are my favorite vapes. The one where it's like you could bludgeon someone to
Yeah.
death with this.
he didn't.
purpose.
He
I like
actually
that.
he didn't
They're the ones with tasers built in.
he didn't vape inside, but he would chew and like would like get a cup of hot chocolate to double cup it, and I always thought that was weird because like at some point you're gonna mix that up.
Oh.
I couldn't mix. I've never been a chew person, but I couldn't mix the concept of chew and hot chocolate. That feels like
In the middle of summer, too.
yeah.
When I was working at the mac and cheese restaurant, we were predominantly in the beginning, especially just
Is this the ghost
Delivery.
kitchen?
like
Okay.
delivery service.
You narrow
like
it down
mostly,
to
yeah.
mac and cheese. I like that.
So it's Macked is the name of the restaurant. MAC''D.
Yeah.
Don't eat there. I
Oh,
don't.
I
I
have no
don't
plans
think
to.
their fridges are not to temp. Oh, sorry. Oh, I got so thrown around. But
It's been an hour and a half.
I'm sorry. I feel so awkward.
Almost not.
I feel so.
No, you're fine.
And I have to pee.
Think
Oh,
okay.
no.
It's totally a pause, and then we can finish. I do
Oh,
legitimately
no,
think Harriet
stop.
Tubman is
And so
history's
do I.
only hero.
Beautiful.
But yeah.
Shit.
Do you know that Mother Teresa died a billionaire? Keep that in. Mother Teresa
in.
died a billionaire.
No, she said there
Stocks?
had to be poor people.
Yeah, she also like they reused needles on the people in the clinics that she ran, so they spread bloodborne illness farther in those communities, helping people.
Is this related to your kitchen story? Or?
No, I just wanted to bring that up because you were saying Harriet Tubman and how and people always talk about Mother Teresa being a hero, and I'm like, no, she fucking isn't. I just needed to say that.
Well, it's like somebody was trying to tell me John Brown was a hero, and I was like, John Brown, I agree with a lot of things. Like I'm not going to go to war with Virginia, but also like legitimately a terrorist, not a very good strategician, and like kind of maybe a little more of the like God's on my side than like I think necessary for things to be cohesively and clear-headedly planned. What was your kitchen story?
So when I worked at that restaurant, we had an order come through in one of the tablets. Well, the person whose card was used, someone was fraudulently using the card. But they assumed calling me meant I was in on it and I was stealing this money from them for the food that we were making for the order. And it was all done through the food delivery service. So there's nothing I can do. So this guy's like, I'm going to call the cops on you. They're going to show up. I'm going to hire my lawyer. And I think it was just so funny because I was like, if you had any idea how kitchen work works and tablet stuff works, we wouldn't know you from Adam. Mm-hmm. Like, we would have no fucking idea who you were or be able to have your card information to do this kind of shit. And he was in San Francisco, which made me even angrier, but that's because that's where the location started. So maybe the person was ordering because they knew about it from there, whatever. But it was just like, it was so funny because I love when people are so certain that you're doing something bad or wrong to them, and you just are laughing because you're like, I don't even know how you could get to that conclusion.
I don't know how to do that.
I do steal things, but not a lot, and it's usually from big box stores. Like, I'm not going to do it from someone I don't even know on the internet.
How much power do you think I have?
Yeah, how much power do you think I have in this kitchen? I got a burn from the Sally earlier.
Please hold, the microwave went off. I have to answer the microwave.
If Mike.
Well, we did a lot of like stuff on grill top. Well, not grill top, but like on
flat top.
Not a hot top, but like the actual burners, and like because we did a lot of mac and cheese and stuff. We had a Sally. We had a lot of fryers too. Fryers are so scary.
Can be.
I'll check you deli slicer to fryer anything.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, I cut my fingers on the dull side of a bread slicer. Like the ones you have to pull it through, because I was pulling it through and it pulled back a little bit.
One of the worst cuts I ever got in the kitchen was from a hotel pan. They were just stacked up, cut it apart, and just went, like, stamped steel. It's sharp as shit.
One time I went into a kitchen, like the grease had caught fire because I had to.
Because they haven't changed it in a month.
Because
or another reason, perhaps.
Because, that's how you keep the flavor. And I was
not wrong.
Flame broil.
On a flat top, man, like.
Some people are of that philosophy not to clean it because, it gets seasoned a certain way. And when you change fryer oil, to put like a scoop of old oil back into it, not a terrible thing. Plus, because when you're first frying in that clean oil, Earl, I said.
Earl. It doesn't taste
like
It's too.
You're not going to get the colorization.
Yeah.
So putting a little scoop back.
Really? So you need that to get the things brown in there?
You don't need it, but
it helps.
And there's different kinds of oil too. A lot of the stuff that is put in, I would guess in that Ghost Kitchen fryer is just
fries,
shitty homogenized. No, the oil. I mean, is shitty homogenized.
I think it was canola. It might have been a blend.
But canola, but it's a seed oil, and it's been deodorized and put through this. If you ever saw a seed oil in its original state, you'd be like, I'm not fucking eating that. And they do this things like, I'd eat that and rub it on my skin and do all the things. But it has a bunch of things in it so it doesn't break down.
But also to never clean out the grease trap because it kept the flavor. That was the part that I was like, are you
the grease trap?
Yeah, I didn't ask follow. Yeah, I didn't ask follow up.
Like the
not the grease trap from the water.
Oh, I was just say.
Yeah, just the.
I had a job where we had to clean the grease trap because it was just like a plastic tub above the ground that it went through. Oh, that was so disgusting. And one time, what we would do is we would put essential oils in a handkerchief. I got peppermint oil in my eye.
Yeah, that'll teach you.
Charlie,
Charlie, what's your story?
Well, I mean, so many, but Well, first off, to address the deep, soul-shattering sigh earlier when you were talking about the front of house counting tips in front of, just one time we had this guy, not one time, this guy that I worked with, he would come by, he's like, oh, we're so slow. I only made $150. I'm leaving after like 2 hours. And they just walk and we're just like, fuck you. I'm like, on a 12-hour shift, I'm making $11 an hour. Like, and so McMinimans had well,
that's your problem right there. You were working at a McMiniman.
Yeah, it was a split
Tater tots cost $10 there now.
Potatoes are expensive.
I just recently
$10.
went back and it was.
They're not worth. They're not worth
$10
expensive though. That's
$10 expensive.
Well, no, because we got them.
Because they're making $17 an hour. You can pay that $10 for tater tots.
Oh no, I can't. That's too rich for my blood.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that would happen. But we were on a split tip thing, so there was a lot of tension between front house and back house in that regard. But weirdest story. So one time we were just cooking. This was when I was at a McMiniman's. It was on a top floor, 2-story building, and we're cooking. I'm like seeing the smoke come in.
Oh,
Is that us? Like, is a hood vent like it's blowing back, or what's happening? Like, are we smoking out? And then the fire alarm went off, and someone had set our dumpster on fire, which was like outside, but it was below the kitchen.
So it was wafting that air in.
Yeah, so we have burning garbage.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say it was gonna hit the fucking barrel of oil or some shit like that.
No, thank God. I mean, those have to be metal now. I think for that reason.
Really, it's like we lost 17 people that day.
No, but we had to evacuate the building and wait for fire department to come put it out. But.
They don't properly vent the pizza place in Dante's. It just smells like burning pizza oven throughout the whole.
Yeah, I mean,
But
that may be the ventilation. They could be putting something on the bottom so it doesn't stick, and then that residue gets in there. I wouldn't say it's necessarily ventilation, but maybe a cleaning the oven type situation.
Yeah, they need to do something because boy, it was rough. I was like, it feels like I left a pizza in the oven for too long.
Yeah, something's burning.
Yes.
It's burning. That's a podcast.
But I got to see Electric Six there, so no complaints.
There you go.
That's
no complaints
awesome.
beyond that. Such a great.
I've also had a chef that was stealing tips, and also stole a jar of weed from someone's backpack while I was in the office, and like texted him a picture of her and the sous chef like holding the jar of weed.
It's fucked up.
And haunting him. And then to just briefly to touch on.
Didn't get their ass beat.
No, she demoted me and then quit immediately. So they never had any proof, and it got.
You just said they texted a picture.
Yeah, you're right. We could have.
But then it's like, hey, this was my weed.
17-year-old kids. Whatever.
Gotcha.
Not.
We were kids back then.
I mean, we were just kids, and we're like,
Great book. Patty
I
Smith,
didn't
Just
even
Kids.
see weed until I was like.
But then just briefly to touch on Ghost
cool.
Kitchens, I was just at the cheesesteak shop the other day. Guy came in. He's like, "Oh, you guys are the best cheesesteak. Love your cheesesteak. I've been to all of them. I've been to Grant's. I've been to Steakadelphia, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Have you heard of this one, Pardon My Cheesesteak?" And that, I believe, is a ghost kitchen.
Was it bad?
And he said he loved it, which is like, so you've never had a good cheesesteak and you're lying to me because...
Oh, is your guys' cheesesteak better, though?
Yes.
Did he at least say that?
Well, he kept talking it up, but I'm saying he also said this other place was good. But it's Pardon My Cheesesteak, which I believe is from a podcast. And they started a ghost kitchen off the back of the brand of the podcast.
Look at that.
So don't...
Well, Pat and I are going to start an ethical cult, okay? That's our bend.
Ethical, if you will.
Ethical. That's what's going on.
I actually did forget to bring you the exercise.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, I keep forgetting to.
We're going to
You
develop
gotta do exercises?
Well, we're going to do a movement practice,
Sounds like
to
CrossFit.
come closer together spiritually, but it's just going to be Pat's PT exercise.
Yeah, so I have people to do physical therapy with me. So
Yeah.
I'm not doing it alone.
Takes a
Listen,
village.
Like,
if we're going to make this ethical, it's going to work for us.
it's gonna be like, and
their backs will feel better too.
And the main
Problem
deal-
solved.
And the main deal is we're gonna be ethical every step of the way. We're gonna be like, no, this is a cult. You are, just so you know, you are signing
But you can
up.
also leave whenever you want.
Yeah. We just
Like-
want all your money before you go.
Yeah, you got to pay for your year up front. I could dig it.
No, I mean, they don't even need to pay money. Just your time.
Yeah, I need somebody to work on the garden
Time
for
is the
me.
only currency.
Listen, I got to run my type 5. You got a little bit?
Yeah.
What?
I need to sit the fuck down.
What's your kitchen story?
What was the genre of kitchen stories? Were it just a kitchen story?
We were saying weird, but I think like I said a sad one.
I said a weird one because I was just love being accused of something I wasn't even capable of.
Trying to think if I have like a weird one because there was like the dude that like he would do sound effects and he would do them really well. And we would think shit was wrong in the kitchen. Like he could do a cricket really well and a couple of other things. And there was one point where the manager did tell me to like look for the cricket and like he was convinced there was a bug in there. And I was like, Charles, can you please just tell him that you're a piece of shit? Can you just
Don't do
please?
it.
Yeah. Because I don't want to, like, dishes are going to stack up if I have to waste time on this. You know it. I know it. Let's just.
That's impressive, though. I feel like a cricket noise would be hard to do.
The other part about him was he was 27 and he looked older than me. And I don't know how he managed to do that, but it was an impressive.
Some people carry a big bag of hammers.
Me now.
They don't have as many spoons.
Yeah.
We were aiming for weird though. I think I keep making a mistake.
Weird.
I like to talk about a bag of snakes. But I
Please.
don't know what about it. I will be like, we don't want to deal with that bag of snakes.
Right.
I mean, if you have a bag of snakes, what are you doing with it?
Whole bag of
All right,
snakes.
so that's
Yeah.
getting cut out.
Jake the Snake Roberts, he had a bag of snake. Ass snake.
My favorite D&D spell is stick to snakes, but weird stories.
Weird stories. Yeah, it's a weird story. Worst kitchen injury, perhaps? How's
Yes,
that?
those are always fun.
That's one way to
I mean,
describe it.
As long as you survived it,
As long as it's
you're
not
happy
like a
adult.
repetitive motion injury or
Yeah.
anything, because that's just depressing.
Like if you got a case if you got a case pending, like don't
No,
go
so,
on the record, man. Don't.
I was in Philadelphia working on, it's called the Mashulu. I don't know if it's still there, but it's a retired ship. Might have been a slave. And it was on a boat. So it rocked and everything like that. And I was in the kitchen. I was a sous chef, and I didn't go out to the dining room much. It was an enormous place. It was like, oh, we got a party on the poop deck tonight. I was like, I don't know what the fuck that is. But I had to go out into the dining room for something between services. I had a bus tub full of something. And there was one server, there was more than one server I didn't really care for, but there was one person, count the money in front of you type person, complain about this, that, and the other thing, bringing shitty tickets. And I'm walking out to the dining room, and I feel something in my foot, like, what the fuck was that? And it hurt. I'm hopping. I hop over to the there were stairs down to the, whatever is down in the basement, the hold, whatever. Put the thing down, and I look at my foot, and I try to pull my clog off, and it won't come off. I'm like, what the fuck? I look at the bottom, and there's a glass stem in the bottom of my shoe. So this cat that I didn't like so much had come back to me that he did it because he ran. But he had dropped the glass in the dining room and didn't clean it up immediately. So there's a broken glass with the stem sticking
Have a
up.
tetanus shot?
So it's stuck in my foot, and I couldn't pull my shoe off. And a young lady server came over. She said, "What's the matter?" And she looked. She was like, "Oh," and ran away.
Jesus.
And ran to the kitchen and was like, "Joey's hurt."
Jesus.
So all of a sudden, there's 10, 12 people around me, and I pull this fucking wine stem out of my foot.
Oh my God. And then your clog just fills with blood.
It didn't. I was pretty surprised. I pull my
Dang.
sock off. I look at it, whip my knife out, scrape the shit out of it, make sure there's no glass in there. Crazy glued it shut, and worked the rest of the service. And this is a restaurant that did 400 or 500 covers a night, so it wasn't
The
easy.
doctor later?
They made me fill out an incident report like 3-4 days later. They're like, "You should probably fill out an incident report." I'm like, "Sure, whatever you want me to do."
Did you ever watch the TV show Community?
A handful of times, yeah.
Drew Carey does a cameo where he's the lawyer's boss, and like he has a hole in his hand that's just there. And so it's the Christmas party. He's like, "You guys get one," and he drops an olive through it. And so I'm just imagining you still having a hole in your foot, and you're just like, "Check this shit out."
I'm pretty grateful. It probably missed everything.
Yeah, I must have missed everything
Yeah.
important.
I mean, it hurt like a son of a bitch, but I still, and I lived,
Oh, really? It hurt?
I
No
lived
way.
20, 30 blocks away from that place, and I walked home that night too. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
What
Went to work the next day and take off.
absolute shitbag too, to be like, it's fine. That won't. Gee,
You know, giving the guy some credit, you know, he might have just broke it and was going to get the stuff to clean it up or anything.
Yeah.
But there was a bunch of people that could have seen that and been like, clean it up. But I cleaned it up with my foot.
Oh, mate.
And that was an interesting
Listen,
one.
you know, like how they have those like sticks with the grabbers at the end?
Yeah.
That's even better because it's not coming loose unless you want it.
Yeah,
Really secure trash pickup.
exactly.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was a good one.
We're doing a big batch of macaroni, and like pour it into the colander, put the colander in this, and I just dumped it so fast, and it's
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Asheroo. Yeah.
went into my clog, and then I had a blister like that big on top of my foot. Popped it, and
I was making
back to work.
jalapeno poppers at the fair when I was 15 at one of the booths, and some of the juice shot into my.
Mm.
And I was wearing contact, but what was worse is that I was wearing really baggy jeans, and that was sopping up the jalapeno juice water, and then that I got basically a contact burn on my calf.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm very careful around jalapenos because I've also forgotten and scraped out the inside with my thumbnail, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
That's a sensitive part of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, Pat.
No, that's fine. I've avoided most of the major injuries because I'm a coward and slow moving, and it makes it a lot easier to I'm just thinking of times people did stuff like that where I was like, I probably came that close, but then my cripple sense was like, things are going too well. Oh, thank God.
Spidey says.
Yeah, I was pouring braising liquid towards me.
oh,
I was too short to do it the other way, and the
Yeah.
tables were too tall, and some of it splashed out, and I had a blister on my nipple. That was a good one.
Yeah, I got a couple scars from pouring oil and it splashing. It's like,
Yeah,
I can't
oil
address
is the
that
one
right now.
that I'm really glad I didn't have much interaction with because I'd probably have a lot more scars if I'd worked with a fryer more.
Yeah.
Because I'm a very spacey person, so I definitely got a basket burn on my arm.
Charlie usually has sergeant stripes.
Yeah, I used to have a
line cuts.
lot more of them, right
Sergeant
here.
stripes, yeah.
I get a lot because I worked bakery too. One time I had a English muffin pan slide in, so I had a really
You got it
nice
right here,
burn
yeah.
right there. It went away. I'm so sad, but I feel like if a burn isn't bad enough, eventually it's just gonna go away. That most of my burn. I did have a sparkler explode in my hand when I was younger.
Explode?
So it was one of the metal ones, and my niece didn't want to use it anymore, and my dad let us use a blowtorch to light fireworks. So I was like, well, I'll just do the whole thing. So it'll be.
Oh, right on.
I really like fire, so kitchen work is dangerous.
Right on. Take this oil and spray it all over.
I am afraid of oil. Oil scared. But thank you so much for doing this with us. Thanks for
You're welcome.
handling
Thanks for having me, yeah.
our chaotic system.
No, it was good. I wouldn't call it chaotic.
And I appreciated being able to hear each other hopefully well. I felt like it
Absolutely.
was well.
Yeah.
I get really spicy.
You mentioned that about the jalapenos.
Yeah. No, I can't eat a lot of spicy food, but I have a spicy personality.
Or a jalapeno.
I might have told the story on there. I don't eat jalapeno. I don't mind spicy. I don't like jalapenos because when I was a kid, people who would be my step siblings, we lived in Sacramento. It's the hottest day of the year. They're like, "Hey Pat, you should have jalapenos because it's Spanish for cools you down." And I was like 7 or 8. And I'm like, of course, you guys wouldn't lie to me because my dad's not cheating with your mom and you guys don't resent that fact and wouldn't take that out on me. So I eat the jalapenos and being 6 or 7, I don't understand what burning is and just run around crying and oh shit, calm down. We meant you have to eat the seeds. If you don't eat the seeds,
my God!
you gotta really crunch them up too. You just gotta really get them all crunchy in there. And so when their mom comes back and I am just bawling, they finally their mom finally gives me milk and shit. But I don't like the flavor of jalapenos specifically.
Yeah, Yeah,
I do like spicy habanero. Like, oh, the sweet spicy habanero like sauce that you can get. Add it to your eggs in the morning. It makes them way more exciting than boring. And
Thanks, chef.
yeah.
My dad would put hot sauce
Look,
on our toast.
I'm going for the poor person who just I literally just hard boil eggs because I was like, oh,
That's what I do.
yeah,
Maybe have them for later.
yeah.
My mom likes poached eggs, and I'm trying to accept that, but they're just
It's very
too
posh.
gooey to me. They're too gooey.
Well,
You can cook them more.
I was making peace with the fact that
I'd rather
like
just have a hard-boiled egg or like a soft-boiled, like in a ramen.
that's why I was making peace with the fact that I shouldn't
different
just
than
have
poached.
a cup and a half of butter
Yes.
every morning to make eggs. Like that's probably not a healthy lifestyle.
When we said bad
Bucky's not
words,
bad.
hot sauce was our punishment, so it took me a long time to want to eat spicy food.
Oh wow.
My dom has the same thing for me. Is that the note to end on? Is that the?
I
is that
hate you
the
so
end?
much. There's always something Pat says that makes me like, we should just never do this ever again.
Joey, where can people find you?
Yeah, Joey, where can we find you? Other than in this basement,
right here.
this super sick basement.
People who are listening to the show.
But like,
who
what
aren't.
about 2 hours from now, and then 20 hours
Oh,
from now, and then 3 days from now?
What the fuck's the name of the thing? Authentic Only Show? Is
Yeah.
that the podcast
Yeah.
handle, Instagram handle?
Yes.
The AO Show? Authentic Only Show. And No Novel Pizza, GFY Sandwich Shop on Sundays. And, being a good human in general.
I couldn't
Trying to be.
remember the GFY. I was trying to remember.
Giving
that.
us delicious watermelon water. That was so good.
Yeah, it's tasty. Mellow.
That was fantastic.
I think it's tasty.
Y'all
And this is a lovely little space. So blooping. I had to talk about blooping. We were playing Vampire the Masquerade.
just a sec. The pizza is amazing here. Everyone should check it out. I've
wanna
had it
try the
before.
Do it.
I liked
It's
all the
okay.
food. I've liked the food I've had here before.
My theory
Well,
was
thank you.
that if I drank the blood of people as a vampire, that I should be able to poop the blood, and it would be called blooping. But Pat would never let it happen.
Because
And that
I made-
happened in this room.
That face you're making.
Fuck?
That face
Yeah.
you're making. I had to make that face and explain that there's like a game we're playing.
Yeah, I
and
say that was a good, interesting
I just
segue
wanted
there.
to be able to bloop as a
This
vampire,
pizza's
and
really
Pat
good.
wouldn't.
I want to eat vampire blood and poop it out.
That's
Yeah,
why
because my
that one's not
character
staying in
was
the
a
episode,
vampire.
But the pizza part being good is.
Thank
The
you.
pizza part being good, and also it was fun to not be able to bloop here. I guess
The
Right
blooping
on.
saga is well known to our listeners.
Right on.
they know all about blooping.
Charlie
it's a
was
thing.
here for it.
Charlie
Oh my
was here
God.
for the.
And you didn't let blooping happen?
No, I chose
Charlie
not
wasn't in
to.
charge. Pat
Look,
was
the
in charge.
the
You could have
nature.
overruled them.
But the nature, the magical nature of vampirism is they're not really eating the blood. The blood is just going into their body and sustaining them. There's basically a demonic entity fueling all of you, and you're sustained by the life force that you drained from the blood. There's no nutritional
And
value.
all
You're
the
not
leftover
literally
iron
eating the
that
blood.
bloop out.
It's gotta go
you,
somewhere.
like you studied vampires or something.
I read the rule book for the game that we
With the
all
fucking
agreed.
manual.
And
RTFM.
I
I
don't
like that.
care about the manual. I want a bloop.
There you go.
So glad we can still hear you, even though you took the mic.
You're welcome. I'm helping. Look at me helping.
Well, what's gonna happen is there's gonna be credit music, right? And then there's gonna be this whole whatever the fuck this was, and then that will be
Conversation.
yeah.
That's what it is.
We should do a talking shit spilling